Hi, I'm Dongxiang. Welcome to Digging into China, where we explore China in depth to review unique perspectives. The US-China trade war 2.0 has officially begun. So in this first round of battle, what moves have Trump and Xi Jinping each made? Compared to the last trade war, is Xi tougher this time or has he softened up? Today, let's take a look at the first round of this showdown. Trump versus Xi Jinping. Let's start with what each side has done so far. On Trump's end, he's taken two concrete actions. First, starting February 4th, he imposed a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports, bringing the average tariffs on Chinese goods entering the US to around 30%. Second, he scrapped the tariff exemption for imports under $800, which directly hits Chinese e-commerce platforms like Temu and Shein. And that's not all. Trump has also hinted that he's considering revoking China's permanent normal trade relations status, which has been in place since 2000. If that happens, tariffs on Chinese goods could soar to over 60%. So how is Xi Jinping fighting back? His first move, tit-for-tat tariffs. China announced that starting February 10th, 2025, it would impose a 15% tariff on US coal and liquefied natural gas, and a 10% tariff on crude oil, agriculture machinery, large engine vehicles, and pickup trucks. But let's be real. This counterattack isn't exactly on the same level. The US is taxing all Chinese goods, while China is only hitting about $10 billion worth of American imports. Clearly, Xi doesn't have the same leverage. That said, he's not acting randomly. He's targeting Trump's core MAGA business circle. So while the scale is smaller, it's a precision strike. You have to admit, for Xi to come up with this strategy, there's definitely a mastermind behind the scenes advising him. Besides tariffs, Xi's second move is to go after big American companies. Since Trump is cracking down on Chinese e-commerce, Xi is retaliating by making life difficult for US firms. The first victim? Google. China has launched an antitrust investigation against it. Then there is a PVH, the parent company of Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, as well as gene sequencing giant Illumina. Both have been added to China's unreliable entities list. Essentially, Xi is holding these American companies hostage as leverage against Trump. And he's not stopping there. Through foreign media, Xi has hinted that he might target Apple and Intel next. Now, when it comes to American companies with the most at stake in China, Apple and Tesla top the list. If Xi ever goes after them, that would signal a full-blown breakdown in US-China relations with disastrous consequences. But for now, it's probably just a bluff because completely severing ties with the US would turn China into North Korea, and we are not at that stage yet. Xi's third move, restricting exports of rare earth and critical minerals to the US. The problem? He's already played this card multiple times over the past few years, and it hasn't been very effective. It's starting to feel more like a performance for domestic audience than a real countermeasure. And then there is his fourth move, filing a complaint with the WTO. But let's be honest, the WTO is practically a ghost town at this point. Its appellate body has been non-functional for years, and the last remaining Chinese judge left a while ago. So Xi takes this case to the WTO is basically just political theater, something to appease nationalists at home and boost their sense of pride. Xi's response this time is noticeably softer, nothing aggressive, mostly just for show. Why? Let's compare this to the first US-China trade war and you'll see the difference. Back in 2018, when the trade war first broke out, Xi was much more defiant. Trump imposed a 20% tariff on $34 billion worth of Chinese machinery, electronics, and auto parts. Xi immediately responded with an identical 25% tariffs on $34 billion worth of American goods. No concessions whatsoever. Then came round 2. Trump slapped a 25% tariff on another $16 billion of Chinese imports. And Xi once again matched it dollar for dollar, targeting U.S. energy, cars, and medical equipment. Trump, seeing that Xi wasn't backing down, decided to go all in. So in round 3, Trump escalated, hitting $200 billion worth of Chinese furniture, appliances, and textiles with a 15% tariff. This time, Xi was in trouble. Why? Because in 2018, China's total annual imports from the U.S. were only about $150 billion, while the U.S. imported over $400 billion from China. Trump's $200 billion tariff meant Xi simply didn't have enough imports to retaliate at the same scale. Even if he taxed every single American import, he'd still fall short. With no other options, Xi imposed tariffs on another $60 billion worth of U.S. goods. But from that point on, he was on the defensive while Trump kept raising the stakes, sanctioning another $100 billion, then another $200 billion. In the end, Xi has had to surrender. He ran out of bargaining chips. So China signed the Phase 1 trade deal. Trump lowered some tariffs and Xi promised to buy $200 billion worth of U.S. goods. On the surface, it looked like Trump had completely outmaneuvered Xi, but Xi had one trick up his sleeve. He simply didn't follow through. China never bought the full $200 billion worth of American goods, effectively scamming Trump. This deepened their rivalry even further. Looking at how things played out the last time, one thing is clear. Trump responds to weakness, not strength. His initial tariff moves were relatively small, just a few $100 billion here and there, mainly to pressure Xi into negotiations. But Xi, being the stubborn leader he is, didn't care whether he had the economic strength to fight back. He just refused to back down, only to realize later that he was outmatched. Forced into a deal, he then figured he could just wait Trump out. After all, U.S. presidents only served 4 years. If he stalled long enough, a Democrat would take over and the deal would become irrelevant. Then, Biden won and Xi was overjoyed. Chinese state media even published a gloating article titled "Goodbye Trump," marking his defeat. And sure enough, Xi's bet paid off. Biden never enforced the trade deal. It was as if the agreement never existed. But while Biden didn't go after China's trade commitments, he didn't exactly go easy on China either. His administration quietly continued Trump's tariff policies, and in critical areas, they tightened the restrictions even further, cutting off China from key technologies and supply chains. After 4 years, Xi's situation has only worsened and China's economy is in decline. At the end of the day, if we are talking about the ruthlessness, deception, and effectiveness, the seasoned politicians in Washington have played this game far better than Trump ever did. As fate would have it, Trump, the relentless debt collector, is back. And this time, he's knocking on Xi Jinping's door to settle old scores. But this isn't the same Trump from his first term. He's learned the art of politics. He now speaks sweetly while striking hard. The moment he returned, Trump wasted no time in launching Trade War 2.0, slapping a 10% tariff on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. But unlike before, Xi's response was noticeably muted. Instead of going toe-to-toe, China retaliated with tariffs on just over $10 billion of U.S. imports, a move Trump marked as nothing more than a drizzle. Even more telling, Xi quickly extended an olive branch through Vice Chairman Han Zheng, signaling a willingness to negotiate. If this were the first trade war, Xi's reaction would have been different, matching Trump's 10% tariffs with his own, escalating to 20%, then 30% until he eventually caved. But this time, Xi seems to have learned his lesson. If you can't win, surrender early. It's a rare moment of pragmatism. But it won't be enough. Trump won't fall for the same tricks again. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's demands this time will be far tougher than before. His first order of business, collecting on China's overdue trade debt. Under the Phase 1 deal, Beijing promised to purchase an additional $200 billion in U.S. goods over 2 years, but only delivered 58% of that commitment. Now, Trump's new Treasury Secretary Bissent has made it clear China won't just have to pay up, but will also face penalties or interest for the shortfall. On this front, Xi likely has no choice but to comply. The contract is clear, and morally, China has little ground to stand on. But that's just the start. Trump's demands are expected to go much further. One major demand, forcing TikTok to sell at least 50% of its shares to a U.S. company. According to Wall Street Journal, sources in Beijing suggest Xi is already prepared to handle TikTok as a commercial issue, meaning a partial sale is practically a done deal. Another likely demand, allowing Chinese companies to build factories in the U.S. and committing not to devalue the Chinese yuan. But keeping the currency stable might be the hardest pill for Xi to swallow. With tariffs squeezing exports, a weaker Chinese yuan would help keep Chinese goods competitive. On top of that, China would be forced to spend its US dollars reserves either to invest in American factories or fulfill its trade commitments, draining its foreign exchange reserves even further. And that's not even accounting for China's sluggish economy. The Chinese yuan is already under pressure. The People's Bank of China is burning through US dollar reserves just to keep it afloat. At the same time, China has to funnel money to Russia. If Beijing insists on propping up the Chinese yuan, its dollar reserves could vanish sooner than expected. Right now, China's central bank is likely in crisis mode, recalculating exchange rate targets and scrambling to figure out how long its reserves can last. Of course, if the economic demands become unbearable, Xi could try offering political concessions to ease Trump's grip. One option, playing peacemaker between Russia and Ukraine, something Trump has openly said he wants from Xi. Another card to play, dialing down military provocations toward Taiwan. That could mean fewer flyovers, no more missile drills, and a general cooling of tensions. On fentanyl, all it would take is a single order from Xi to shut down domestic production overnight. He could even pull back on the Belt and Road Initiative or step away from BRICS, moves that could be clear, measurable gesture. With Trump back in the White House, Xi won't have the luxury of playing the same game twice. And if the next administration is another MAGA Republican one, he'll even less room to maneuver. At this point, Xi's best bet might be to buy time, keeping a low profile, avoiding confrontation, and making just enough concessions to ease the pressure. If he's willing to play along, Trump might even roll back the 10% tariffs. The only question is, does Xi have the foresight to make that call? By the way, in recent developments of the US-China trade war, the President Trump has temporarily paused the repeal of the de minimis rule, which allows duty-free treatment for packages under $800. This decision comes after an abrupt policy shift led to significant disruptions in customs processing, postal services, and global e-commerce supply chains. The reversal gives the Commerce Department time to adjust the policy before full implementation. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like it, drop a comment below, and hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps YouTube suggest my videos to others. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, be well.